So hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Sutton, editor of The Medicine Maker, and today I'm speaking with Maik Jornitz, President and CEO of GCON. Maik is very influential in the industry and was recently named on our 2021 Power List. And today he's going to be telling us about how his career got started and about the topics that interest him the most in the industry today. So Maik, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So first of all, then, let's go right back to the beginning. What first inspired your interest in bioengineering?
It was actually, bioengineering was not existing at that point. I was very much interested in biology right in my school days and wanted to do something in biology. But I didn't know what I should do, what I should study. Is it biology or biochemistry? Bioengineering was really not on my radar. And then what happened, I spoke to a friend of mine and he said, well, why don't you study bioengineering? And it's actually in Hamburg, where I came from, Hamburg, Germany. And so I suddenly realized there is a topic, which is bioengineering, combining biology, my favorite topic, with engineering. For me, there was a match made in heaven. And so that's how it came to that I started bioengineering.
And then what did you initially have planned for your career?
Something totally different. I was also interested in interior design, but those days in Germany, nobody hired an interior designer, although when you look at all the programs nowadays in the US, everybody is using interior designers. So I really wanted to do that for a while, but then I realized that I have to have a career in one way or the other. And and again, bioengineering was the right topic. Biology just fit the bill.
Today you're with GCON. So what first drew you to the company and what have been your proudest moments with the company? I know you've had a lot of successes.
Yeah. So the first thing what drew me to GCON is the product. I mean, pre-qualified clean room units, which are prefabricated offsite. For me, it's an absolutely unique product. When I saw it the first time, I walked through a door and I saw these pots, I just fell in love with it because I thought this is exactly what the industry needs. Why do we don't buy a car in bits and pieces? Why do we buy clean rooms in bits and pieces and then, construct them or assemble them ourselves at home or hire somebody to assemble it at home? Instead of buying the car like we typically do and drive it off the parking lot. That's exactly what I saw with GCON pots. So I just fell in love with the idea of these pots and seeing the speed of implementing clean rooms much faster than we typically see, and that's something which is highly important for the industry. What's my proudest moment? There are many of them, certainly. But I would say when it comes to my team, when it comes to the GCON team, I would say that's my proudest moment because the GCON team is just absolutely exceptional. It's a fantastic team. We all work together as a team, and you can ask, all customers which we have, what they say about the team, and how impressed they are by the team. That's definitely my proudest moment, our team.
Going back to the technology for a moment, so the pod technology, how have conversations around like modular clean rooms changed over the years? Because, many years ago it was quite new and now a lot of people are using them.
Yeah, so the early days were definitely very hard because one had to convince a very conservative industry that this is another tool in the toolbox and a beneficial tool in the toolbox, and just listen to us and see what the benefits are. And then again, we had to also not only convince the conservative industry, the pharmaceutical industry, but even architecture engineering firms. They require to be convinced that we are a good tool in a toolbox, a part of a solution, because everybody's always doesn't want to touch the unknown. It's always, nobody wants to be the first. Everybody wants to be the fast second. And so we see this adoption of becoming more and more rapid now. And it's, I always call it the avalanche effect. And when you look at stainless steel process equipment in the old days, converted into single-use process technology, it took around 20 years to have that avalanche effect, and everybody's now really running single-use process technology. I think the pod infrastructure, realizing how fast these pods can be, clean room infrastructures can be installed, that will rapidly more and more bring the technology into the market. And I believe, you know, the success which we have right now with COVID-19 vaccine installations, and again, the speed within these installations will accelerate it even further.
And then outside of GCON, I know that you're involved with a lot of different societies and associations. Why do you find this so rewarding, and how have you benefited over the years?
Yeah, I would say that's twofold. Number one is there's a selfish part really in it also, because I learn a tremendous amount from the network as well as from the organizations themselves. You just learn from your peers, and my thing is you never stop learning, and you always have to learn. You always have to be intrigued by something new to improve the industry also, and to put your input in and your side of the view, but also listen to the other side of the views of your network, of your peers, of experts in the industry. And it's fantastic to work together with them. So the selfish part there, I just enjoy learning from my peers, and I just enjoy the interaction with my peers. The second part of it is I have a lot of know-how and experience, and I believe it's my obligation to train the next generation. We need to bring out the next generation for the industry. We need to train the next generation for the industry, because at one point, all of us will retire, and we need to have then at that point a solid base of the next generation coming up, taking our place.
I know you've been heavily involved in a lot of training for the next generation of scientists. Are there any projects or initiatives there that you're involved with that you'd like to tell me about?
Yeah. I've been mentored. I was lucky enough, I had a mentor, a very good mentor in sterile filtration, and we both, over years, we were just philosophizing about sterile filtration. And I know everybody thinks we were crazy, but it's just a passion. Sterile filtration is, I just am intrigued by that field. It's a highly critical process step, and I just enjoy it very much. So I had a mentor, and with that mentor, he actually trained me, and he brought me into a group of people where I learned more and more. And I think it's me, then I have to give forward. I have my obligation to give forward to the next generation, to people, to build up the other sterile filtration experts or people who are passionate about the industry. So I feel it just as a must to do. And how do I do that? Certainly, I always still write a lot of papers. In some instances, these papers might be provocative, but I think we need to be very thought provocative. Then you get the interaction and discussions going. I write still books also, and I give a lot of talks at conferences. Even, you know, when we had the COVID-19 lockdown and no conferences were available, we did everything via Zoom, and we just pre-record our presentations and present and have a question and answer session. And I like it also because what you do, you get any question you get challenged, and you start thinking again, and start, it's invigorating that you actually have that interaction, and you don't become stale. You again learn, and you also keep yourself energized.
Right. And then looking at the industry as a whole, then, you've been in the industry a while. What are the most surprising changes that you've seen in biopharma manufacturing over the years?
Uh, yeah, that's probably a bit difficult to say, because in instances, the changes, when you look at the changes, they were not surprising. They were kind of like really, really slow changes. And some, friend of mine, he always says, I'm 40 years in the industry, and what surprises him most is that there were no changes in the industry. And so it's such the one thing is, I think we have so much great technology out there, and it's implemented in such slow space or pace. And when you look at other industries like the semiconductor industry, computer industry, any industry is much, much faster than the pharmaceutical industry. And that's a bit of a shame, because I think it's a bit of a dilemma. We could be much better, much faster, much more robust, and serve the patient with that also better. The one surprise I have to say is, which is really good to see. Number one, cell and gene therapy. I think we see now targeted therapies against cancers, which is fantastic to see, in rare diseases also. So that's, for me, a real great glimmer of hope. There's new therapies coming out. Instead of throwing a nuclear bomb at a cancer, we're now having a sharpshooting approach, which is so much better. And then the other part, which I think is fascinating, is the COVID-19 vaccine development. I think there we saw the industry coming together and creating something, a feat which was just so complex, so difficult, and went out to the edge, onto thin ice, developing a vaccine with a lot of financial impact, risk, that coming out, successful. And I think, for me, what happened there is so encouraging, and I have just gratitude for any of these vaccine developers, what they've done and how fast they've did it, and all the scientists. It's fantastic to see that.
Yeah, I think one of the amazing things with the COVID-19 vaccine development in particular is that COVID-19 emerged quite suddenly as well. At first it was something in China, and then all of a sudden it was hitting the whole world, and there was that degree of shock. And then the industry is still able to move really, really quickly, get the supply chains in order, get everything in order, and actually get these vaccines developed. It was incredible progress.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Although, from a standpoint of pandemic, I think the other part which we saw purely from a standpoint of being prepared, from a standpoint of the preparedness level, we were not very prepared. And the industry stepped up to the plate and compensated for the unpreparedness. And just, these folks, they work day and night to create a vaccine. Again, hats off. And then the other part, which I always am thankful for, as the first responders. I've been a paramedic myself, on an ambulance. I'm always grateful and thankful for all the first responders in regard to the COVID-19 pandemic. They again run towards the fire instead of away from it, and we can only be grateful for their work and their dedication.
Yes, absolutely. There, what the healthcare industry has done as a whole really is amazing, and I think we all appreciate them even more than we did before.
Yes.
So that's been wonderful. If we're looking at the biopharma industry as a whole, so obviously, cell and gene is a rising topic, and there's a lot of conversations about vaccines right now too. Are there any other topics or challenges or technologies that you find really compelling today?
Yeah, I would say, number one, cell and gene therapy, that's really dear to my heart. And again, it's also dear to the heart of GCON, because most of our projects go into cell and gene therapy because, again, our clean rooms fit very well into that industry. So I think that's fantastic to see the successes there and what can be done in regard to some of the rare diseases. I mean, spinal muscular atrophy, for example, you see these kids surviving and receiving a cure against that wicked rare disease. So it's great to see that a small patient base is served nowadays. So I'm very encouraged by that. The vaccine part is certainly very encouraging, but again, specifically on the mRNA, messenger RNA side, I don't think we've seen the beginning of it. I think messenger RNA and the development of messenger RNA and being accelerated by COVID-19 will create a different therapeutic or treatment platform. And I think, you know, when you listen to some of the experts, yes, much more which will be done with messenger RNA. And that's very encouraging because, again, it's much more targeted. And we will see what comes out of that. So overall, I have to say, when we look at our generation and what kind of treatments we get, we are living in a much better era than in previous years. So the survival rates are much better. The treatment is much better. So I'm very grateful for that, to be actually in that generation than an earlier one.
And then, you know, with cell and gene, you know, with the progress being made, obviously a lot of research has been impacted by the pandemic. You know, some research has stopped. Have you seen that happen with cell and gene as well?
No, we have not. It's everything what's done right now in cell and gene therapy did not stop. The projects did not stop. We received more projects last year than the previous year. So we're building much more cell and gene therapy right now. And probably the reason for it is because we don't come on site. We're building off-site. So nobody is on site, and the risk of COVID-19 infections or workers' density on your side is not there. We have very, very rigid COVID-19 protection regimes within GCON. So we're building off-site. We still build all the projects, and as soon as we can ship, we bring the projects out. So at one point last year, we couldn't ship because some of the states closed down. As soon as they opened up, 4 projects went on the road. So we're building, we didn't stop building. And I think that's something, that's another benefit which we saw, that you can build it off-site without being a risk for your own side and risk to your staff.
Right. You know, the pandemic's obviously changed a lot of things about how the industry operates. And I'd like to ask you, if you could change one thing about the way that, you know, biopharma operates, or invent a new technology, or transform the industry in some way, what would you do?
That's a difficult question. There could be a number of technologies which you know, would come to mind. I think there's so much new technology out there which could be implemented, but hesitancy is keeping it at arm's length. The one thing what I would love to have changed is the adoption rate of new technology. So if the industry would adopt new technology much faster, it definitely would be beneficial to the industry, ultimately to the patient. Having said this, I can also understand the industry being much more conservative, because when you look at post-approval changes, and I've been in the task force of aging facilities and post-approval changes in the PDA, post-approval change, the post-approval change process is so long and tedious that I don't blame the industry that they don't adopt new technology, because it is just a major risk for them, and it takes 3-4 years to have a global change implemented, I think we need to get into a renaissance between suppliers, industry, and regulators. And I always say it's the three of them which need to come together and change that and understand that some of the new technologies actually create a higher safety level for the patient and a higher safety level for the product. Why do we then still take such a long time to have a post-approval change implemented? So I think the combination between throwing out conservatism and throwing out this like traditional thinking and also the regulators supporting that we are getting new technology into the industry, when these two combine and we actually adopt new technology faster and get a post-approval change faster, I think we would see so much more progress within our industry. And we need to ultimately, if the semiconductor industry would have not changed, we would not have an iPhone. So we need to get to that type of degree of innovation and innovation implementation.
Do you think the pandemic has influenced companies to maybe adopt new technologies a bit faster? I mean, like you mentioned before with the mRNA vaccines, that's sort of almost been proven now, and hopefully more companies will pursue that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's a brand new technology, brand new process. And it's, again, what the engineers did there in regard to that process is fantastic. They went to the drawing board and immediately started working on it, on new processes, new technologies, and utilized their creativity to create the mRNA-based vaccine. So yes, I would say it's a very much glimmer of hope that that type of adoption rate will progress faster. But the future needs to see whether this is really the case, because we had an Ebola vaccine developed pretty fast in standards for vaccine development. And everybody thought, oh, but this will also be faster now for the future. And then everything, typically it's a rubber band effect, and the rubber band is stretched, and at one point it pulls back again. So I hope it will not, because we need to change the processes, but we need to change also, product release criteria. When you think about new technology, new cell and gene therapy, for example, in some instances, you have only 48 hours to swing around the injection. So you have 48 hours to bring the needle into the body of the patient. And so you need to have totally different product release criteria at that point. And I say it again, I think it is vital for us in future to come together as the supplier industry and regulators to work on these new entities which we have, because we either bring a therapy to a patient, or we sit on it because we need to have our release criteria, being defined in the conservative mode.
Yeah, I know a lot of people I've spoken to have said similar things, and they're hoping that there will be a change and that things will get faster, because companies do seem to want to embrace new technologies. They just want some of the hurdles to be reduced along the way.
Yeah, I agree. Although there are also some conservative people out there, which, and I've come across this, they said, well, we don't want to have anything new. We know the old. I know how to work with that, even when it's extremely inefficient and when it's a major headache, but they still go for the old.
Well, Maik, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that, and hopefully we can influence some people to embrace change, embrace new technologies, and hopefully the pharma industry will continue to improve. Now, just finally, before we end this interview, I'd love to know who inspires you day to day, who's inspiring you right now, and who do you think will inspire the pharma industry to change?
Well, that's always the same answer from my side. It's the patient. I am dedicated to the patient. For me, it's since I entered this industry, I wake up in the morning and you think about the patient and you think about what impact can you have on the patient. I know I'm not on the direct production of the therapeutics, but I'm a wheel in that clockwork, and the products which we create are a wheel in that clockwork to work for the patient. And we have banners in our facility which remind everybody of our team members that they work for the patient every day and that they save lives working for the patient every day. And I think that's something which we always have to have as a reminder that we all work for the patient. In whatever function and whatever you do, you ultimately work for the patient. So what inspires me, absolutely the patient.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Maik.
Thank you.